following is a presentation of the Belly Up Sports Media Network.
Here's what's cooking on today's Sports Stove Football Show. Free agency chaos, lots of quarterback moves, and some big names staying home. That's what's cooking on today's Sports Stove Football Show. Welcome in to an all-new edition of the Sports Stove Football Show, presented by Righteous Felon Jerky. Join the flavor revolution at righteousfelon.com and use the promo code STOVE15 at checkout to get 15% off your purchase. Hello, everybody. I'm Vince Stover, your host. I'm joined, as I am every episode, by my dad, Dale Stover. Dad, how you doing?
Doing good. Boy, like I said, this is an exciting time of the year sports-wise with a lot of stuff. And football there's a lot of that going on and has been this week, boy, with free agency and everything like that. So, yeah, it's sports-wise, this is a great time. A lot going on every day.
Yeah, so we've been off the last 2 weeks. We'd planned to have a show last week and had internet issues, so we couldn't do it. The free agency, of course, has exploded, which is a lot of fun. And thankfully, we are able to do the show this week. So I'm in my new studio. Still have some work to do on it. There might even be a little echoing going on today. I don't have the walls up, everything taken care of yet. So I apologize for any audio issues in regards to that. Hopefully by next week, we'll have that fixed as well. But we are talking football today, and free agency has been rolling. Let's start there, Dad, with new faces in new places. We'll start with just generally, what's stood out to you in this initial free agency kickoff.
Well, like I said, really, there was just a lot of movement, and some teams were very, very aggressive, maybe not ones that I was necessarily expecting. And of course, the things to watch for really are some of the names that you know. Some of the teams, I heard some people talking today, and I started to think about, and it's true, some of the teams that have made a lot of moves in free agency, but you don't really know a lot about those players. You don't know that they're going to make a difference, but yet there are some obvious difference makers that are going to. And one thing that really kind of set things up when it all started was the fact, and you alluded to this, some of the people that stayed home, some of the really big names that you said this is really going to be, throw something, they didn't move. And right. So that kind of helped there. But, some teams were just, very aggressive. You can see some teams have kind of blown it up and are starting over again. And, from there, but it seems like, most teams, are making, definitely some effort. There was a lot in free agency, but there was a lot of trades also. And the trades made some of the big difference. So, yeah, there's a lot of ones we can highlight and talk about. But yeah, I think a lot of teams definitely tried to better themselves. And I think probably some of them did.
We'll get to those guys that stayed home a little bit later. But when we look at some of the big signings here, and there have been several, I want to kind of start looking draft order wise at what some of these teams did. So at the top of the draft order is the Tennessee Titans. What they've done is they have really secured their offensive line through free agency, bringing in Dan Moore and Kevin Zeitler. They have two recent draft picks already there as well, and a pretty decent center. So, those guys lined up, and we're going to talk about quarterbacks in a moment, but it kind of seems to be pointing that the Titans have a quarterback in mind, being that they're sitting at number one overall, and they've secured what they need to secure there on the offensive line. The Browns, they haven't done anything drastic free agency wise, but they did retain Myles Garrett, which we thought, Myles Garrett said, I will never play in Cleveland again as a Brown. And he's going to play there for probably the rest of his career now, unless he gets traded at some point. So he's back. Nothing major free agency wise with Cleveland. I'm going to come back to the quarterback situation. Well, we're here. We can talk about it. They traded for Kenny Pickett. They basically traded their backup quarterback, Dorian Thompson-Robinson, to Philadelphia. Philadelphia sends Kenny Pickett. What does this mean for Cleveland? It basically means, well, I think one of two things, Dad. I think one is I think they're beginning to believe Tennessee's taking Cam Ward at number one. Now, Kenny Pickett has more similarities to Shedeur Sanders than he does to Cam Ward. He's obviously not the same player, but there could be some of that. Hey, let's get a guy in that can bridge, and he can, in similar style, whatever. But then the more you look at it, Dad, Russell Wilson was in Cleveland yesterday visiting and talking, or maybe today talking to them. Kirk Cousins has been rumored to go to Cleveland too. To me, it's starting to look like Cleveland is not going to be drafting a quarterback at number two unless Cam Ward somehow makes it past number one. So Kenny Pickett comes in. Can he play? Sure. He has some experience in the NFL. He's a Super Bowl winning quarterback, according to some people. I look at Kenny Pickett and I go, it could be worse, but it could definitely be better too. And I'm kind of starting to lean now towards maybe Cleveland not taking quarterback, at least not at number two. Maybe they'll take a guy late in the first round, trade back up, or maybe they'll get somebody in the second round. But I'm starting to think, Dad, that maybe Cleveland has accepted the fact that Cam Ward is not going to be available at number two, and they don't really like Shedeur Sanders.
Yeah, I think this was a really good move on their part because Pickett, I think he has potential. And like you said, he has, some experience. To me, this was a really good move and gives them someone there. And I think you're right with all their talk, with what they're doing at quarterback and what they're talking about, to these other guys. I think they're probably not. And again, we've talked about the draft. There's a lot of talent in this draft. So at their second pick, they can help themselves in a lot of other ways if they don't need, to be a quarterback. And maybe, like you said, maybe they don't think Cam Ward is going to slide, or maybe they don't think any of these quarterbacks, deserve to be there with that second pick. So not sure which that is, but hope Cleveland's making the right move. So
yeah, Cam Ward he won't make it past number two. I can promise you that. Let's go on to the Giants. We're going to go back to the quarterback conversation in a minute. Giants, they haven't done a ton of great stuff necessarily. Safety Javon Holland comes over. That's a pretty good one. Stone Forsythe, the offensive lineman, signs. They also signed James Hudson. So they've done some things. They got some defensive linemen also, linebacker. But Dad, these Giants, they whiffed on Matt Stafford. It appears they whiffed on Aaron Rodgers. I want to come back to them because I want to talk about them when I come back to talk about Shedeur Sanders. But Dad, it looks like the Giants, they're going to be stuck in no man's land here at number three. They're going to get a good player at three, but as far as their season goes for this season, it's not looking pretty for the Giants again coming into 2025. We'll come back to them though. New England, they get Milton Williams. They get rid of their defensive tackle, Godchow. He goes to New Orleans. But everyone says that the scheme fit that's here for Milton Williams makes a lot of sense. Harold Landry comes over from Tennessee, which, of course, Coach Vrabel coached when he was in Tennessee. Great edge rusher. I was actually really hoping and thought maybe there was a chance Harold Landry could end up in Green Bay. He does not. He goes to New England. They also signed Morgan Moses. So New England, again, they're not going to be a Super Bowl winning team this year, but they've got their quarterback in Drake May. They're adding some pieces here leading up to the draft that gives them a chance at number 4 to do a lot of good things and in the second round as well to really build this team up for the future.
Yeah, like I said, the Giants, I don't know, or no, we're at New England now. Yeah. I think New England's headed in the right direction. They made some moves there, and again, they've got a quarterback I think they can work with. So, and they're in a good spot in the draft. So, hopefully they're heading where they need to. And again, they have a coach that's going to help them. So,
yeah. Jacksonville signed a whole bunch of people, but none of them seem to move the needle too much. Again, role players, filling needs, whatever it may be, which is fine. Las Vegas, they go out and trade for Geno Smith, and they sign Alex Capa, the guard. They also bring in Jeremy Chin, a couple of DBs. So, I mean, look at Vegas again. They decided, it appears, that they're not going to draft a quarterback in round 1. And it appears that Geno Smith is there for 2, maybe 3 years. And Pete Carroll, doesn't want to start off with a rookie quarterback, at least not one in the first round. And if you remember his success with Russell Wilson was not a first-round pick. So maybe they got their eye on somebody else. I said it a long time ago when they hired Chip Kelly. Many other people have said it too. Will Howard is going to be sitting there in the 3rd round, maybe the 4th round. Chip Kelly coached him this year. You've got Geno Smith that you can play for this year, next year, maybe even the following year. And you have time to mentor, train, and get ready for maybe a Will Howard later down the road as well. Thoughts on Geno Smith to Vegas and kind of what that means for them?
Yeah, I think that was a good move because, again, the coach is familiar with him. He's had a good career the last couple of years. And I think, again, with them re-signing Crosby and some of the things they're working with, I think that, he's not the best quarterback in the league, but I think it's definitely a stable situation and allows them to build some other stuff and, be able to be competitive with him.
Yeah, and you mentioned the signing of Crosby. That's a big deal because we talked about that weeks ago about, man, where is he going to end up? Where is he going to go? And he resigns at Vegas, sticks around. That was a big one for sure. Jets, they get their quarterback in Justin Fields, a 2-year contract. Again, everything that I see here, Jets are not going quarterback in round 1. And so you're looking at Justin Fields getting an opportunity in New York. We both like Justin Fields. And there's still some room to grow in the Jets, but Garrett Wilson and Justin Fields know each other. So you got that natural connection there. But I think the Jets are still a little ways away, but I like bringing Justin Fields in.
Yeah, I like Justin Fields, and I think that was a good move on their part. The new coach there's a lot of work to do at the Jets for a lot of reasons, no doubt about it. But I think giving Fields a chance, and again, if they've got a coordinator there that'll work with him and build the offense around him, they do have some people, some other weapons there. So I think that is a good spot for him. I don't know that the Jets are going to really turn things around this year, but we'll see.
Yeah. All right. Carolina, they've signed a fair number of guys, not really game changers, in my opinion. The Saints, only 2 signings, but pretty good ones. Defensive tackle, Devon Godchaux from New England, and then Justin Reed, the safety. So there's been some good things there. There's talks about maybe Carr getting cut, which might be the answer in New York. But nonetheless, that may happen. I don't really want to spend a whole lot of time on them. Let's get to the Bears, though, Dad. The Bears have been very active, and they've really surprisingly made some good signings here in this free agency period so far. Defensive tackle Grady Jarrett comes over. They have revamped their offensive line. Jonah Jackson and Joe Thuney at guards and Drew Dolman at center. Dad, I think there's and they signed Dayo Adeyingbo as well. So I think the Bears have looked really good here in the free agency period, and we can only expect them to screw it all up in the draft. But so far, free agencies look good for Chicago.
Yeah, it really does. They were one of the teams that really surprised me with the moves they made. The number of moves, but also they did get some solid people. No doubt about that with the offensive line. Again, they've got a quarterback. They need to protect him, and they made good moves here in free agency to help get things started. No doubt about it.
Dallas, I think, has done similarly. They go out and get a little bit of offensive line help with Rob Jones. Running back Javonte Williams from Denver signs. They made 2 trades, one for cornerback Kair Elam from Buffalo and linebacker Kenneth Murray from Tennessee. And they bring in a few other guys as well, Solomon Thomas and some others. Dad, Dallas, again, I want to come back to them when we're talking about Shedeur Sanders because I have an interesting take, I think, on that one. But I know you like Javonte Williams a lot.
Yes, yeah. I mean, again, he hasn't been the same since the injury, but he definitely has potential there. So that was probably good. Dallas, has made some moves. They lost some players also in this. So I don't know, again, that they really totally turn things around at this point. They still have the draft coming up, but they were active as far as making efforts. I don't know. Again, if there's a lot of stuff to get super excited about, but we'll see.
Okay. Colts, they bring in Charvarius Ward, cornerback, good signing there. Quarterback Daniel Jones signs for 1 year. They said to bring in competition for Anthony Richardson. I don't know, Dad. What's your thoughts on Anthony Richardson, Daniel Jones heading into summer camp?
Yeah, I'm not sure that makes for a great quarterback situation with either one of them. Richardson obviously has the ability, physical ability and everything, if they can make it work there.
Yeah.
Daniel Jones, again, a change of scenery, depending on, the coaching and the people they have with them. He was not the answer for sure with the Giants, and I don't know that he'll be the answer with the Colts, but it's probably not a bad spot for him. The idea of those two competing, that's going to be tough if they don't, if they're not able to settle something. They're going to need to come out of preseason and say, okay, this is the guy. If not, it won't be good.
I think Anthony Richardson has to win the locker room. And if he can't do that, it may not matter how good he plays. He had that issue last year where he comes off the field, didn't want to play, he was tired, whatever, and lost the locker room. And I still not sure you can recover from that. The best way to do that, though, is show up in the summer, just a completely changed person. And I don't know that he's going to do it. Daniel Jones can win the locker room, but can he win on the field is the question mark. It's an interesting signing. Again, first-round draft pick like Kenny Pickett. There's potential there, of course, but what we've seen so far out of Daniel Jones doesn't give you a whole lot of hope if you're an Indianapolis fan of the future with him. And again, it's just a 1-year deal, so we'll see how that one shakes down. Let's see here. Who else was I going to talk about? The Seahawks. They go out and get Sam Darnold. They trade away Geno Smith. They sign Sam Darnold. They also bring in Josh Jones on the offensive line, DeMarcus Lawrence on the edge, and Marquez Valdes-Scantling. As he's been getting around the league here recently. Sam Darnold had a great season in Minnesota. It did not end well, but I've been trying to warn Vikings fans, you're going to miss this. They don't believe me. They're ready to move on to J.J. McCarthy. Okay, we'll get to that in a minute, but when you get to Sam Darnold in Seattle, do you think he can have another good year in Seattle?
Yeah, I think Seattle made good moves. I think getting Darnold was really good for them. I think that helps them, move on quicker. And like I said, they made a couple other picks, a couple other moves there. And again, the draft will be a key for them. In that division, I don't know how they're going to do right away right now, but I think the Sam Darnold thing, I think that's probably a really good spot for him. But again, you kind of say, well, they lost 2 of their receivers, but they kept their best receiver. The young guy from Ohio State's really, really good. So he's got something to work with there for sure. And, I'm sure they'll, get other pieces to go with it. So I think it's a good place for Sam Darnold.
Okay. Steelers, they get DK Metcalf, one of those receivers you were talking about. He doesn't have a quarterback to throw it to him. Mason Rudolph re-signed and comes back to Pittsburgh as well. There's question marks around Aaron Rodgers. Draft doesn't seem to make sense in Pittsburgh either. So I'm not sure how it's all going to work out there. But DK Metcalf going to Pittsburgh, that was a big deal. I was a little surprised that's where he ended up. But that's where he ended up. Let's see here.
Pittsburgh picked up a good cornerback too. A little older, but got Slay from Philadelphia. So.
Oh yeah, Darius Slay. Yep, you're right. I didn't have that one on my list. Let's see here. Let's jump down to the Houston Texans. They traded away Laramie Tunsil. So what are they going to do about it? Well, not a whole lot on the offensive line, at least. They do bring in Laken Tomlinson. They bring in Christian Kirk in the wide receiver room, make a few little moves there. Again, this is a team that's so close. They did bring in C.J. Gardner-Johnson at the cornerback side. So they've improved, or they at least secured up some things on this team. And it really feels like the Texans are still maybe one or two pieces away. If they can find them in the draft, well, then there you go. If they can't, well, it's going to be another disappointing year, even if they win the division again. So I don't know. Any thoughts on Houston?
No, like I said, they did make some moves there from that standpoint. So, but I don't know that they solved all their problems here. But like you said, I think they're a good team. They're just a little bit away, and so we will see. They were active. They did make moves, so hopefully they had a plan.
Rams are able to get Stafford back. They bring in Devontae Adams. Poona Ford comes over too, so they're making moves. Ravens bring in DeAndre Hopkins, where all receivers go to die. The Commanders, Dad, they made a lot of solid stuff here. Only 4 moves, but Laramie Tunsil traded from Houston to secure up the O-line. Deebo Samuel over from San Francisco. Javon Kinlaw at defensive line, and then Jonathan Jones at cornerback as well. And Washington, they're a team that seems like players want to go play in Washington right now. And I really like these moves that they made here in this offseason so far.
Yeah, they were probably some of the strongest moves of anybody in the group because, like I said, they're headed up in the right direction. They've got a quarterback. I think they do have a coach that people want to play for. Deebo Samuel is getting older, but he's got a lot of ability, and if they can use him right, it'd be a help. Tunsil, of course, great on the offensive line there, and like you said, they picked up a defensive guy too. So, I think they made really good moves, and they're going to be very tough in that division.
All right, last team I want to talk about in regards to the free agency moves is the Vikings. They bring in 2 offensive linemen. Ryan Kelly will now be the new center as they release their other center today. Will Freeze comes over as well. Defensive line, though, they bring in Jonathan Allen, who got released from Washington, and Javon Hargrave to really shore up that defensive line. You look at this, Dad, you look at what Chicago did on the offensive line. Minnesota did on the defensive line. They kind of got that all settled and taken care of, and their issue is not going to be the defense. It's going to be the offense. We'll talk about that more in a minute. But again, powerful moves here from Minnesota to get better at the very least defensively.
Yeah, they definitely, like you said, they're going to have to settle their quarterback issue, but they did make moves to help with the defense. They've got a good defensive coordinator. So, I think they tried to help themselves from that standpoint. But, there's a lot of head scratching when you look at the offense and what they're doing. They did sign Aaron Jones again, so they got him back from there. And they, of course, have a great talent, wide receivers and tight end. But you have to have a quarterback. And I think, everybody's still waiting to see what the plan was there. Of course, there's talk about Aaron Rodgers. Yeah. There's so I don't know. I don't know what their plan is there. I'm surprised, like you. To me, Sam Darnold, the way they had the year they had, that would have made sense there. But again, I do like their coach, no doubt about it. He's done a good job. But again, the Minnesota Vikings, and makes sense. That you kind of got to wonder sometimes.
Yeah. Listen, J.J. McCarthy is not the answer. I'm not saying he never will be, but he's not. And this Vikings fan base is in for a rude awakening if J.J. McCarthy is their quarterback this year. He's not there. He's not ready for that light. When you go to a team that won 13 games, or 11 games, whatever, what was it, 13 games, I think, last year. If it's J.J. McCarthy as their quarterback, they could be down to 7 wins. And that might be one of the better cases that they have as well. I'm just telling you, J.J. McCarthy's not it. He's not ready. He's not there. And I cannot believe. Now, I'm guessing they have a plan, but I don't know, Dad. And if it's Aaron Rodgers, so be it. I mean, I just don't. I don't see how that's going to fix your problems for this year. It'll be better than J.J. McCarthy. But you're right. I don't know what the plan is there in Minnesota when it comes to the quarterback situation. But they're not the only quarterback needy team. I want to go back to this quarterback conversation, Dad. Start at the top with Tennessee. All signs point to them drafting Cam Ward now. For a while, it was a possibility, but it looked like maybe they wanted to trade down, and maybe they still will. They might get a better offer than one that they cannot refuse. But everything now is pointing to Tennessee taking Cam Ward at 1. Either way, Cam Ward's going at 1, whether it's the Titans taking him, the Giants trading up for him, or maybe even Cleveland moving up for him. But Cam Ward's going 1. I think it's Tennessee. That leaves Cleveland now trying to figure out what they're going to do. They're not going to take Shedeur Sanders, and let's have the Shedeur Sanders conversation, because for the longest time, Shedeur Sanders was QB1. We get done with the college football season. Everyone starts watching the tape, and all of a sudden he gets flipped. Cam Ward's now QB1, and it's because of how good Cam Ward is. His mentality is amazing, all these kinds of things. Then we're getting closer and closer. And again, we got people just trying to get clicks, and there's people trying to whatever. But it is now starting to look like Shedeur Sanders is dropping. And if Derek Carr doesn't get released, we could be talking 12, 13, 14, 15. Like, we could see an Aaron Rodgers even-esque drop for Shedeur Sanders here, the way things are going right now. And really, the Giants are his only hope, I think, of being a top 3 draft pick, because I don't think Cleveland's going to go with him. And the Giants, they got a coach and a GM that need to save their jobs. Is Shedeur Sanders going to do that for him? Not with the team they have currently, unless the ownership says, "Hey, we're going to give you time with him." So, Dad, I don't know. I sit here and look at Shedeur Sanders, and here's the problems that I see. Number one, his arm talent, it's not great. It's not bad. He can be an NFL quarterback, but it's not elite. He brings with him drama that does not work in an NFL locker room. It worked in the college locker room. It's not going to work in the NFL locker room. And so I'm intrigued to see, and I don't have anything against Shedeur Sanders. He seems like a nice kid. He seems like a talented kid, all these kinds of things. But when Dad comes out and says, there's certain teams he's not going to play for, then he goes through and has these interviews at the combine, and people walk away from it going, he's not taking this very seriously. Like, it's not a professional interview. He doesn't care if we like him or don't like him. He's not really putting out effort in these interviews to make us like him. And you're starting to see a little bit more of this Hollywood drama that you don't want in your quarterback. You can put up with it in a receiver. You can put up with it with a cornerback. But in your quarterback, you need professional. You need a leader. And Shedeur was able to lead in college, but I'm telling you, I just don't think it's going to work in the NFL as it currently sits. And, Dad, if the Giants don't take him at 3, we're looking at maybe the Saints at 9. And then after that, you're looking at Dallas. And it all just comes back to the Cowboys, Dad, because you get him now this year. You got a new coach down there in Dallas, and you can easily see it turning to Dion next year or the year after. Shedeur can sit behind Dak for one season, or they can release Dak, or they can trade Dak to a Cleveland or to wherever. I don't care. You name it. Shedeur's falling. It seems like he's falling hard. And Dad, I just don't know that he's going to be the savior in the Giants, and therefore we might see him drop even out of the top 10.
Yeah, he definitely, it sounds like he could drop. Of course, one of the teams you talked about could move up to get him. They may not need to do that.
Right.
So maybe they wouldn't. But, people get a little panicky sometime about quarterbacks. So I don't, the question is going to be, is there a personnel department in one of these teams that is sold on Shedeur Sanders? they feel like, no, we can develop him. He is a guy we don't want to pass on. Is there somebody that's really sold on him? And, again, maybe they're hoping, he'll drop and that'll be fine. But if not, then yes, that would be that will make for an interesting draft up there in Green Bay if Shedeur Sanders starts to plummet down the tundra. So we will see.
If he starts to fall, let's look at trade-up candidates. New Orleans is sitting at 9. They could move up a couple picks and take him if they want to, or stay, possibly. Dallas, they need a quarterback? No, but it's a Sanders. Indianapolis, they got Daniel Jones. They got Anthony Richardson. If all of a sudden Shedeur Sanders falls down to number 9, Indianapolis is only a few picks away. Maybe they go, hey, let's go all in. Let's go get them. And they could probably trade Anthony Richardson to New Orleans along with picks to move up to that spot. They could play Daniel Jones this year, Shedeur Sanders next year, whatever. Seattle is out of the picture now because of Sam Darnold. So that's no fun. Originally, it was going to be fun. Tampa's probably out. Pittsburgh. What if Pittsburgh says if he falls out of the top 10, Pittsburgh goes, hey, let's go up and get him. Let's go up and grab him there at 11 or 12 or whatever it may be. And then you got the Rams that got a plan for the future at some point. So, those are kind of your trade up potential teams. I think everything that I'm hearing when I'm studying this stuff out, Las Vegas is not going to take a first-round quarterback. New York Jets are not going to take a first-round quarterback. So you're kind of limited then at that point. Because before it was like, well, if he makes it past 3, you got the Jets, you got the Raiders. Now, everything that I'm hearing is those guys are now out on first-round picks on quarterbacks. And maybe you see them trade back up later and get a dart or wait to the second round and get a shuck or whatever it may be. But quarterback things have been interesting. And then, of course, you got Aaron Rodgers, Russell Wilson, Kirk Cousins all floating out there still, too, that are looking for a home at the end of the day. So, I don't know, Dad. Quarterbacks are always a fun storyline. And it's just gotten – I'm working on my mock draft 2.0, and I don't know what to do with Shedeur Sanders. I sit there and go, there's no way the Giants can pass on him, right? Like, they need a quarterback. But why not take a Travis Hunter or an Abdul Carter or whoever's there in the first round and then take a shot at one of these other quarterbacks later on in the second round? So I don't know, Dad. I don't know where it's going to go. I need to put this mock draft out. Shedeur Sanders has got me all on a bind. I just don't know what to do with him right now.
Well, I think when this whole really the quarterback situation is not going to be really settled until the Aaron Rodgers thing is settled. Is somebody going to sign him? Because that's going to change things. From there, is somebody going to sign him? Is he not? I'm kind of intrigued the fact that he hasn't. It kind of makes me think, and of course I don't have any inside information. It makes me think that teams in general would like to have him for a year or two, but they don't want to put up with what happened at the Jets in different places. And it seems to me like there's probably some stipulations. There's probably some discussion about, hey, okay, we'd love to have you. We've got people that can go with you. We want to win, but we don't want this. We're not going to change. You're not going to run the system, and we don't want all the sideshow. And he obviously has not found a spot that's set for him. I don't think money is probably the big issue or have held anything up at this point. It's just whether he can find a fit for him. How much is he still considering retiring? Is he definitely a no, I'm going to play next year, or is that still an option in his mind? And the deal is, I'll retire, but if I can find a great place for 1 or 2 years, it looks to me like he's not found the great place at this point. Now, he does like to drag things out, and he does like attention. So, I can see him not signing on the first day, but I think until his question is answered, things are going to be a little up in the air because that's going to change things. Russell Wilson maybe is not going to find a spot until Aaron Rodgers is settled. But we will see. What do you think Aaron Rodgers is going to do?
Well, I think Pittsburgh makes the most sense because you have a coach that's well respected, that's not going to get pushed around. It makes sense. He's got receivers that are talented. He's always had a fun relationship with Mike Tomlin anyhow. I think that makes sense. I think he was holding out hope that maybe he could go back home to San Francisco. I think with the Mac Jones signing, that's kind of nixed that, any chance of that right now, because they're in this, trying to figure out what they're going to sign Brock Purdy for and all this kind of stuff. I think he's kind of waiting to see if something really, really awesome pops up for him. But to me, it looks like Minnesota or Pittsburgh are the two choices now. He could still go to the Giants, I guess, if he wanted to, but that doesn't make sense. They're not talented enough in New York. That doesn't make sense, other than the fact that he's been living in New York this past 2 years. So I think Pittsburgh makes the most sense for him as far as opportunity to win, the talent that's around him. Minnesota, it's a possibility. I don't know. I mean, he's a spiteful guy. He's he likes to have a chip on his shoulder and whatnot. I just don't know how you can look. He was there through the Brett Favre stuff, and he's someone who cares so much about his legacy. To me, that just taints it so badly. And he's seen that the Packers fans have forgiven Brett Favre and love him again and all that kind of stuff. So maybe he leans on that a little bit. But for a guy who cares so much about his legacy, you'd think he'd retire. But going to Minnesota would just be wild at this point. So Aaron Jones is there. He does like Aaron Jones. They did cut all of his other friends. So, I mean, I don't know, Dad. I think Pittsburgh's the best choice for him. I think Minnesota, talent-wise, is good, of course. I just don't think it makes sense for his legacy of things there, in my opinion, at the very least. And maybe that's a little bit of bias being a Packer fan as well. I don't know.
It doesn't seem to me like Kevin O'Connell is the kind of guy who would say, okay, Aaron, what do you want to run? Well, how do you want to do it? I mean, I think he's got a plan. And now again, maybe the plans would mesh and maybe Aaron Rodgers would say, yes, I can work in that kind of system and that would be fine. But Kevin O'Connell's got a lot of good things going there. And I just don't see that being the deal, for Aaron Rodgers to fit. And the only thing that makes me wonder about Pittsburgh is it hasn't happened yet.
Right.
Yes, it makes some sense. Again, I heard today or yesterday some people talking and just saying, Tomlin's the kind of guy that will lay down the law and, hey, this is what we want to do and we want to win. But again, does he want all the sideshow and everything with it? And is Aaron Rodgers going to go along with that? To me, he would have already signed at Pittsburgh if he was going to. Now, maybe he'll sign first thing in the morning. I don't know. But that's what makes me wonder about that.
Yeah, I think Tomlin would be buddy-buddy with Rodgers. I mean, Tomlin's the kind of guy who looks tough, but I don't think he pushes veterans around. I think he kind of lets players run things, and he's had good leaders there to do so. So I don't know that I agree with that take, but who knows? You look at, there's not a whole lot of other teams out there that are options that I was trying to think of who could pop up as kind of a surprise team, but they're just not there. I think Pittsburgh's where he ends up. And I think the only reason it's dragging out is because it can. And Aaron Rodgers has never seen his name in the headlines and thought, oh, we need to change that. No, he likes it there. So we'll see. We'll see what it comes down to there. And again, I mean, it's not like he's being pushed too hard because would you rather have Rodgers or Russell Wilson? I'd still take Rodgers over Russell Wilson, so and over Kirk Cousins currently as well. So he can take his time if he wants to. And maybe he plays in the UFL. That'd be exciting. But I don't think that's going to happen either. So All right, Dad. Anything else you want to discuss? I think we're going to wrap it there.
No, I don't think. The one other free agent thing that I thought was kind of interesting, and I don't know if it'll make a big difference, but I like the player, was Najee Harris going to the Chargers.
Yeah.
Seemed to me like that was a good move for them. Looks like he's still got some things left in the tank. Had a good year last year, and I thought that kind of, with everything else going on, kind of under the radar, that was a good pickup.
Yeah, it's an intriguing one. Again, it's a 1-year deal. He gets a chance to go and play, and they let go of, they let their other running backs leave basically. So they needed a running back badly. I thought maybe they could be a fit for one of these running backs in the draft, and they still could be. Intriguing. Again, yeah, I agree with you. I like it. Bosa, we didn't talk about him going to Buffalo. Good pickup there. They drop Von Miller. They bring in Bosa. So I'm surprised at that. I really thought the brothers would get together, or he would stay out west somehow, but he did not. He goes east there as well. So plenty of big signings, plenty of fun movement going on, and hopefully by next week we'll have a little bit more clarity on the quarterback stuff. And at some point before our next program, I'll try to drop the mock draft 2.0. I've had such a hard time figuring out, if Shedeur Sanders doesn't go top 3, where does he go? And I'm trying to include some trades in this mock draft as well. So we're working on it. We're working on it for sure. I remind everybody, go check out righteousfelon.com. I'm telling you, it's phenomenal beef jerky. You're going to love it. It's tender. It is flavorful. They got spicy ones and non-spicy ones. I've had all of their flavors. There's only one that I don't like, and that's the Truffalo Bill. I just don't like. It's not my taste. But everything else I absolutely love, and I fully endorse Righteous Felon Jerky. So check them out, righteousfelon.com. Use the promo code STOVE15. That's STOVE15 to get 15% off your purchase. All right, Dad. Nothing else?
Nope, I think that's it. Like I said, it's been an exciting couple days with free agency, and we will see by next week. I'm sure some other things will shake out, and then the draft's not going to be that far away. So
it's getting. I can smell it from where I live, Dad. It's getting closer. All right, follow us on social media at Sports Stove on Twitter and Instagram. Thank you for tuning into this edition of the Sports Stove Football Show. Until next time, we'll see you around the Sports Stove.